You can't breathe underwater. You don't have fins. You can't hold your breath for more than a couple minutes without passing out. And yet, tens of thousands of years ago, humans looked at the biggest, most terrifying, most unknowable thing on planet Earth, the open ocean, and said, yeah, we're crossing that. No wetsuit, no compass, no idea what was on the other side, or if there even was another side. And somehow, they made it. This isn't a story about brilliant engineers sitting around sketching blueprints. It's the opposite. It's a story about people who had zero idea what they were doing, who had never seen a boat work before in their entire lives, and who built one anyway, out of pure necessity. So let's rewind, way back to the actual beginning of this problem. For most of human history, water wasn't just an obstacle, it was the wall. Mountains you could climb, deserts you could cross if you were tough enough and patient enough. But water? Water didn't care how strong you were. You couldn't walk on it, you couldn't outrun it, and worst of all, you often couldn't even see how far it went. A mountain range has a peak you can spot from miles away. A river, a strait, an ocean. It could be 50 feet across, or it could just keep going forever, off the edge of the world as far as anyone back then knew. So here's the actual question we're solving today. How do you invent something you've never seen work in order to cross something you don't even know the size of? That's not a technology problem. That's a psychology problem. And the answer to it changed literally everything about how far humans could go. Let's start small. Rivers and lakes were the first version of this problem. And honestly, it's a good warm-up. Imagine your morning commute, except every single river in your path is a dead stop. No bridge, no tunnel, nothing. You just stand there. That was life for a huge chunk of human history. You could be the strongest, smartest, most determined person in your tribe, and a river 30 feet wide could still end your journey completely. Eventually, somebody solved it, and we actually know with real physical proof who got there first, or at least who left behind the oldest evidence we've ever found.
In 1955, construction workers were building a highway in the Netherlands near a tiny village called Pesse. While digging through a peat bog, one of them hit a big chunk of waterlogged wood. And here's the part that should honestly bother you a little. He almost threw it away. Thought it was just an old rotting log, tossed it onto a dump truck like garbage. It was basically seconds away from disappearing forever into a landfill. But a local farmer named Hendrik Wanders happened to notice it looked off, not like a random log. He took it home, and eventually it ended up at a university for testing. What they found was staggering. This wasn't a log, it was a canoe, carved out of a single pine tree using nothing but stone tools, and radiocarbon dating placed it at somewhere between 8040 and 7510 BC. Let that sink in for a second. That's over 10,000 years old. This boat predates the pyramids. It predates writing. It predates the wheel. It predates agriculture in most parts of the world. While most of humanity was still figuring out how to plant a seed, somebody in the Netherlands had already carved a working watercraft. Of course, some skeptics pushed back. Maybe it wasn't a boat at all. Maybe it was just an old animal feeding trough. Except there was one massive problem with that theory. There were no domesticated farm animals anywhere in Europe at that time. No cows, no horses, nothing to feed. So in 2001, an archaeologist named Jaap Bucher decided to settle the debate for good. He built an exact replica, handed it to a canoeist, and had them paddle it on real water. It floated, it worked. Case closed. The Pesse canoe is officially the oldest boat ever discovered. But here's where it gets even better, because this should have been a total fluke, a one-off. Some genius in the Netherlands figures out boats and that's that, right? Wrong. Thousands of miles away, in Nigeria, near a village called Dufuna, archaeologists found a second ancient canoe. Same basic idea, hollowed-out log, carved with primitive tools. This one dates back around 8,000 years. And here's the twist. There is zero evidence these two cultures ever had any contact with each other. No trade routes, no shared technology, nothing connecting the Netherlands to Nigeria at that point in history.
Which means two completely separate groups of humans on two different continents independently looked at the exact same problem, water in the way, and arrived at the exact same solution. That's not luck. That tells you something deeper. This wasn't some rare stroke of genius. It was almost inevitable. Give humans enough time and enough motivation, and the boat basically invents itself. Okay, so we've got hard proof for rivers and lakes. But now here's where this story stops being a straightforward timeline and turns into a full-blown mystery. Because rivers are one thing, oceans are a completely different monster. And when we go looking for the earliest ocean crossings, something strange happens. the evidence just disappears. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, archaeologists found stone tools dating back more than 800,000 years. Not 8,000, 800,000. And Flores has always been an island, separated from the mainland by open water, even back then. So think about what that actually means. Somebody or something that wasn't even modern Homo sapiens yet made it across a water gap that deep in prehistory. No boat has ever been found from that time period. Not a single plank, not a scrap of hull. And then there's an even bigger jump. Around 65,000 years ago, humans crossed from Southeast Asia into Australia. This wasn't hopping over a creek. This required crossing at least 60 miles of open ocean, water so wide you cannot see Australia from the other side. No landmark, no confirmation the destination even existed. They sailed into a blank horizon on pure faith and made it anyway. So why don't we have the boats from either of these crossings? Simple. Wood rots. Bamboo decomposes, reeds disintegrate. Anything soft enough to build an early boat out of is exactly the kind of material that vanishes completely after tens of thousands of years buried in tropical soil. We don't have the boat. What we have is the footprint it left behind. Stone tools sitting on the wrong side of the water, hundreds of miles from where they were made, with absolutely no way to get there except by water.
It's basically detective work. No smoking gun, no body, just very clear proof that somebody was standing exactly where they shouldn't have been able to stand. And that actually points to something bigger than just boats. Before people were hollowing out tree trunks like the Pesse canoe, the very first boats were almost certainly something way more fragile. Bundles of reeds lashed together, animal hide stretched over a bent frame, floating logs roped side by side, materials chosen not because they were the best option, but because they were whatever was lying around. And every single one of those materials is exactly the kind of thing that rots, burns, or dissolves without leaving a trace. Which means the oldest boat in the world title we keep handing to the Pesse canoe, it's not really the oldest boat ever built, it's just the oldest one that happened to survive. The real first boat, the actual very first thing a human ever successfully floated on, is completely unknowable. It's probably older than anything we've found, maybe by tens of thousands of years, and it's gone forever. So here's where that leaves us. We've got a 10,000-year-old canoe from the Netherlands that almost got thrown in the trash. We've got its twin from Nigeria, built by people who never even knew the Netherlands existed. And we've got the ghosts of much older, much braver crossings. Flores, Australia. Voyages we can prove happened, using boats we will never ever see. No fins, no gills, no idea what was waiting on the other side. And they went anyway. That's the actual invention here. Not the wood, not the tools, not the design. The invention was deciding, with absolutely nothing to guarantee it would work, that the horizon was worth crossing.